My name is Carolyn, and I talk to the spirit world. Travel with me to a dimension filled with love, light, and joyful surprises. Welcome to Carolyn's Psychic Playroom. Hi everyone, Carolyn Wilkins here, welcoming you to another edition of Carolyn's Psychic Playroom. And for this special episode, I am so honored to present as my guest the amazing medium and teacher Darren Brittain. And I was fortunate to do an interview with Darren about his new book, which is called From Innocence to Inner Sense. And I got to co-host this interview with my friend Paula Mary, and it was on her program, the Spiritual Surgery radio program. And we both got to ask Darren a bunch of questions, and I got her permission and his permission to share it again, the interview, because it was just so fun. He's an amazing teacher, an amazing human being, and I know that you are going to enjoy this interview. Before I launch into doing the interview, however, as I always do, I like to offer a little reading to help set your space for the day. So lately I've been really fond of these Andinkara cards, which, as you know, is a deck of cards based on the metaphysics of Ghana. And so these symbols, which come from Ghana, someone got the brilliant idea to put them on a deck of cards, and here we are, the Andinkara cards. And I'm going to pull one. Each one of these symbols represents a quality or characteristic. And so as we're looking forward, we're now into December and looking kind of forward towards the end of the year and so forth. What are some things that might be going through your mind about things that need to be done or things that need to be finished up? And what quality would you like to have a little bit more of in your life to help you making it through the end of the year? So that is going to be my question, both for myself and for all of my viewers on the Psychic Playroom. What quality do we need to develop to take us out of 2020 and into the new year? So I've shuffled a couple of times. Now I'm spreading the cards out, and let's see what comes. This one could not be more appropriate. The card Resilience. Resilience. I can't think of a more essential quality right now. I don't think there's anyone who hasn't suffered some kind of loss this year, even if it's only been the loss of the typical lifestyle that we're used to, not to mention many people lost jobs, family, loved ones, etc. So the quality of resilience is very important right now. And whatever you can do to take care of yourself, to take care of your spirit, to not allow yourself to be sort of beaten down by current events, even though at the moment they may seem rather dreary or difficult, but the quality of resilience and that opportunity that we always have to bounce back. We do have that. And I actually spoke about this with Darren during the interview. You'll hear I actually asked him about some of his techniques for dealing with this difficult time. So without further ado, I'm going to share the interview. Now remember, the interview was done on the radio, so I've put a few images there so you have something to look at, but basically it is a radio interview for the next few minutes, but I think you will find it Very interesting and very worth listening to. And then I'll come back in a little bit, do a reading for you, and we'll wrap it up. Okay, see you in a few minutes.
Good afternoon, Carolyn. How are you?
I'm great, Paula. Thank you as always for having me on. It's wonderful to see you again.
Oh, it's so lovely to have you back. Now, I was talking to the listeners earlier about our sound healing clinic on the 3rd of October. So at the end, because I know you're doing joint readings with me, but at the end of the show, we'll talk a little bit more about that.
Absolutely, I'd be happy to.
Fantastic. So, Carolyn, all I'm going to say is over to you. Take the show.
Oh, thank you. So, Darren, thank you so much for letting me interview you. I have been Darren's student. I've had the good fortune to take 2 courses with him, one online and one of the last ones that he gave might have been his last visit to Boston. Yeah. And they were just wonderful courses. And one thing I did notice, Darren, I took very extensive notes at your January event. And as I read the notes, and I thought to myself at the time, how well organized is he? The notes outlined themselves, boom, boom, boom. Well, lo and behold, when I read your book, what did I discover? But in fact, many of the very same topics arranged in the exact same way. So I want to say I feel like we got a little sneak preview of some of your main concepts in the book. And the book is fabulous. So I'm just going to ask a couple of questions with you. First of all, I urge everyone to read it because it's a wonderful combination of both memoir and mediumship textbook, if you will. And that's a hard thing to pull off, having written both the textbooks and memoir. It's not easy to combine the two, and I thought you did really brilliantly with that. So my first question goes to the memoir piece.
Okay.
In your memoir part, you talk about an incident in which someone fired on you from a passing car, and this just really struck me like, oh my gosh, what happened? So can you share a little bit about that incident and what happened and how it may have affected your mediumship?
Yeah, I mean, it was a very obviously shocking experience. It was reading the book. It was one of 3 events that had actually happened that brought me to a recognition and realization that our thoughts have a power to them. So I'd been to my local Spiritualist church, and I was walking probably about the 2 miles home and was crossing the bridge to go back to my parents' home. And I'd heard just behind me the sound of a fast van or a fast noising vehicle, fast traveling vehicle. And I'd started to hear people shouting behind me. And as I turned around, the vehicle had reached the side of me at that point. And I'd just happened to see the barrel of an air rifle pointing out the passenger side of the door, of the window rather. And then there was a crack, like the crack of a whip almost. And literally a sting that hit my left knee. Now, obviously, I was completely shocked. It happened in less than a couple of seconds. And what it brought to my realization, apart from the fact that I'd now had a hole in my knee, was the fact that, not that long before that, I'd seen a TV program where the discussion was really about somebody that was a victim of a drive-by shooting in New York, actually. And it was being discussed very openly by the victim. I think it was the Oprah Winfrey Show. And I remember watching that, being quite shocked at how that man, what he went through. That just felt very traumatic. His story was traumatic. And yet here I was, not that long after me, experiencing that on TV, that I had in a way, thankfully, much less of an experience than he'd had. But it was actually the reality of that thought. And preceding that thought, when I was watching the TV program, was, I wonder what that must have felt like for him. It was almost that thought of, sending a request to the universe. I'd like to know what that feels like. And I'm sure that doesn't happen with every single thought we ever have. But I would hope not anyway, but it certainly, it brought a reality to the world of thought. And I think that's really what really made me look at, okay, if I can do this in life, does this also show up in our mediumship? When we're open to information, when we're open for evidence, when we're open for details, is that really quite important as a thought to have, to reach for things within our mediumship? And so that's really where it took me within my mediumistic involvement. Yeah.
Wow. That's fascinating, and I will say there's an old saying, be careful what you ask for, and apparently this was one of those. But that's great. That actually leads me to my next question, which is that both in the classes that I took with you and in your book, you talk about something that you call experiential mediumship, meaning that spirit will use our experiences in order to help bring a message. And I just found that so captivating, and I was wondering if you could speak just a little more about that.
Yeah, sure. I think many students over the years, and certainly from my own experience, have had these moments when they're sitting in their groups, sitting in their circles, their practice sessions, and they find themselves thinking about something that's happened to them. They find themselves thinking about or remembering their grandfather or remembering a story that happened in their childhood. And there's an automatic assumption when that thought comes up that their mind is getting in the way, their mind is involved. And so they dismiss that thought and they maybe open another chakra, say another prayer, rub another crystal, whatever they do to try to reassure them to get the mind out of the way. But what I've realized since is that in that moment of us connecting to the other world, the spirit communicator is looking to find a way of really connecting to the medium, really blending and bonding with them so that they can start to deliver their communication. And so what they do, I believe, is to bring up within the mind and the experience of the medium things that they have also shared. So shared memories, shared experiences, shared names, shared places, shared things that help them to blend and bond together. Now, we experience that shared memory as our thought, our memory, but it may be that we get the image of our grandfather, who might be called William, and it may be that the spirit communicator is trying to bring the name of William, and so by doing that, they're able to access our memory to bring forward that piece of evidence. Now, if we can learn to trust that, and trust that that will happen at some point, and we trust ourselves enough to give it, what that demonstrates to the spirit communicator is that, okay, we've got them, we've got a hold, we're close with them now, we can blend with them now. And then what happens is that the more that we allow that connection to form, the information that then comes is more than evidential mediumship. So it's less about the experience of the medium and more about the evidence of the communicator. Now, the downside to experiential mediumship is that often, because many of us live lives that are very similar, we have lots of similarities, names certainly, that we have to reach beyond our own experience to really demonstrate the individuality, so that the grandfather in the spirit world called William is different to your own grandfather as the medium. So, but experiential mediumship also is affected and influenced very much by culture, by location, by age group, demographic, that kind of thing. So we really shouldn't be eventually seeing, I think I write this in the book, that many mediums will give communications from grandmas that like to bake cakes with lovely sweet perms and, very kind ladies with an apron. And that was very true of a certain era. Many grandmas did appear that way and did behave in that way. But what we should be now seeing in our mediumship are grandmas that are standing there with an iPad rather than an mixing bowl. So why aren't we getting that? If we're looking at how experiential mediumship evolves, that's really what should be showing up as a shared connection, and less so the things that from a different era.
Wow. That's great. Well, we're almost out of time, but I do have one little quick question I'm going to wedge in. As you guys can see, Darren is a fabulous teacher. He's really clear, and he brings through, you can imagine, this particular concept of the experience and learning to trust
our experience and realize that Spirit is using our experience to bring messages was revolutionary for me personally. So my last question has to do with, how are you maintaining, as a spiritually aware person and as a psychically sensitive person in this very, very difficult time where we are being bombarded with everything and our experiences are very rocky, do you have very quickly a special regime or thing that you are doing to kind of keep yourself in balance so that you're able to receive clear messages and trust your experiences and all that good stuff?
So we are in a time of regression. We've individually, we're going back to times in our lives where that have been difficult, it feels. We're revisiting things in that way. Collectively, as a humanity, we are as well. So what my practice, my daily spiritual practice, is I pray. I pray regularly, many, many times a day. I sit, I meditate. And really what I do is I increase the focus on the things that take me higher, on those things that feel good, rather than focusing on those things that take me into fear and anxiety. So I generally don't watch the news. I generally keep away from that kind of bombarding of information, which really can, really kind of get under your skin and make you feel very fearful. So I focus on things which take me higher, really, in my thinking, in my energy. That's how I navigate my way through the moment.
Yes, indeed. I'm with you 100%. Well, thank you so much, Darren. I appreciate you being here and getting a chance to chat with you again. I'm going to turn you back to Paula now.
Thank you so much.
Thank you, Carolyn. They were wonderful questions and wonderful answers as well. And I've got Darren, Tricia just replied back, I appreciate Darren's lack of ego. This is something that more mediums need to learn to let go of.
Thank you. That's actually, that's beautiful. Thank you for that. But it's also, there's an incredible truth also to the fact that, when we're working in the mediumistic state, we really have to work hard to get away from our identity. Yes. We have to literally lose our ego in that time that we connect to the spirit world, so we can allow the other world to blend with us. So I work really hard outside of mediumship, on myself. I really work hard at trying to understand me. But then when I'm in the mediumistic state, I really work hard to forget me. Lose my ego in that state, definitely.
Lovely. So, Darren, now in the book you mentioned about a breathing exercise, which I actually did in the caravan here yesterday. And actually, I really, really enjoyed it. So, would wondering if you briefly demonstrate a breathing exercise for the listeners, please.
So, when we are anxious, when we are in the grip of an uncomfortable emotion, what we generally do is we hold our breath. We hold our breath because unconsciously we believe by holding our breath we're going to push down those, uncomfortable feelings. So what I would just ask your listeners to do is just to take a moment to feel comfortable, bodily comfortable, and sit however you are relaxed, and to close your eyes and just to observe the way that your body naturally breathes, without forcing it, without trying to make it conform. The breathing cycle is controlled by a part of our brain which, is not affected by our thinking. But if you just notice your breath and notice that there is a pause between breathing in and breathing out, and really just by noticing that pause and really working at lengthening that pause, so taking a breath in, and just observing the pause and then taking a breath out. And the more that you focus on that, you'll notice that the breaths get longer, the pauses get longer, and you find within the pause a stillness. And it's in that stillness that our mind starts to calm, but it's also in that stillness that our awareness starts to open up. And if we can just do that and be very conscious and very mindful of that, I think the Brahma Kumaris teach a 1 minute breathing meditation, where on the hour, for a 1 minute, they very consciously sit and focus on their breath. And that, by the end of the day, we've done then 15 minutes meditation for the 15 hours we've been awake.
Gosh. Yeah, no, wonderful. Absolutely. And it is all about the breath, would you say, Darren, when you are working on stage as a medium?
Absolutely. Because our consciousness is linked to our breath.
Yes.
Always. When we breathe differently according to where our mediumistic state is as well. So when we're praying, we're breathing very differently than when we're in a trance state or when we're in a evidential mediumship state. Yeah.
Yeah. No, fantastic. So, Darren, anyone wanting to become a medium, I would advise them to read your book. But what one advice would you give to them?
Oh, okay. I would say, actually, rather than just developing your mediumship, really work at developing your spirituality. Really work at developing kindness, really work at developing empathy, because empathy is the antidote to ego. When we're in the grip of ego, we're really identifying with I, my thoughts, my feelings, my separateness to you. But, we can't be egotistical and empathic. So if you want to work at being a better medium, really work at your spirituality. I think that's the thing I would say. Don't worry so much about training yourself to connect to the spirit world. Work at understanding who you are and work at finding kindness for each other.
Yes. And would you say if you've had sort of difficulty in your childhood or anything, that needs to be cleared before you become a medium, would you say?
I think we're all going to die with some stuff unhealed. Yes. We're never going to be cured of all things. I think we're going to be very clear on that. Yeah. That's like that's not possible.
No.
So, but we need to be aware of it. I think, and be aware of the impact that can have on us, because certainly, I talk in the book about the filters that we have in our thinking, which can filter out, certain pieces of evidence, certain people from the spirit world, because of what we're offering to the process. So I think it's really important to know who you are as much as you can, to see what the past has brought to you, but also then recognise how that can influence and impact our mediumistic state and awareness.
And would you say, that someone does that and then they're working and then something resonates, some client comes in and actually they might need then to actually carry on and complete that there so that then they can move forward higher in vibration? Would you say?
I think anything that we identify that needs healing, yes. And we can learn to live beyond the wound, because the wound will never go, but we can learn to live beyond. I think that can be, certainly very freeing for us and very liberating for us. But it can also be, if we tell that story in the correct way, it can be a great inspiration to other people. So I think we have to look at what, rather than being the victim of an experience, how can that be of benefit to others, of service to others?
Yes.
And it can only be beneficial and of service when it's healed within us.
Yes.
So I think that's important.
Yeah, no, absolutely. So finally, and it's been absolutely amazing to have you on the show. It's been a delight to talk to you, and thank you for coming on Spiritual Surgery. It's made my day and my week, actually, I have to say.
Oh.
So where can people buy your wonderful book, Darren?
Oh, well, actually, was it last week? It finally went on to worldwide Amazon. So wherever you are in the world, you can order it through Amazon in your country. In the UK, obviously, it's available from my website, and I can post it out directly. If you did want the book signed, because people like the book to be signed, then that has to be done through my website, darrenbrittain.co.uk. But it's also now available in bookstores around the world, Barnes & Noble, Waterstones, and it is able to be accessed through independent bookstores as well now.
Oh, fantastic. And what sort of events do you have on offer at this time?
So I've actually just listed the events on my website on the events page. So if there are listeners looking to kind of look at options, then if you go to the events page, they're listed there. Obviously, at the moment, everything is pretty much online until COVID, becomes resolved. So yeah, that'll be the best place to find when things are coming up.
Oh, fantastic. Carolyn, anything you'd like to say to Darren?
I guess the one obnoxious question always asked of authors, are you thinking about another book or a follow-up, or are you just so happy to have this one done you're not thinking about it?
Having never given birth to a physical child, I can imagine that there's a process of recovery that has to go on.
You got that right.
It's exactly the same with gifting a book to the world. It really is. There's a process of recovery. So I'm not quite thinking about the second child yet, but I'm hopeful I'll feel okay enough to do it at some point. This one took 12 years, so
wow.
Let's excited about it's going to be anytime soon.
I feel you should.
Definitely. I do. I feel like you have a lot more to say. And having gotten the first one out, I will say, as the author of many books, the second one is easier. It's easier.
I may call on you for advice, Carolyn.
Have you read her book, Death of a Seance? It's amazing. Oh, it's really good.
Obviously, I know Carolyn a little bit from working together,
Yes.
but I imagine it's a phenomenal book.
Oh, really lovely. It's beautiful. It held me. I read it quite quickly as well, which is really good. So thank you so much, Darren. Thank you so much for coming on the show and talking about your book, From Innocence to In a Sense. It's hard to say, isn't it?
You really have to think about it, which might be some kind of subliminal reason why you called that as well.
Yes, it's good for me.
Hi, everyone. I hope you enjoyed that interview. I know it was a radio thing, and you're looking at kind of still images, but I hope you at least got a flavor for what a wonderful, wonderful teacher. I took a few classes with him, and I hope, God willing, when the virus is done and once again we can travel back to England and so forth, I hope to study with him again. A marvelous human being. So, Darren Brittain, and you can find out more about him at his website, darrenbrittain.co.uk, I believe. If you Google Darren Brittain, you'll find him. Anyway, I also, as I like to do here on the Psychic Playroom, I also do readings for people who have written me to ask for a reading, and this edition of the Playroom, I had the good fortune to do a reading for a lovely woman named Kathy, and I'm going to share that reading with you. And if you are interested in getting a reading yourself on the Psychic Playroom, please write me at psychicplayroom@gmail.com. Hi, Kathy. Carolyn Wilkins here. I know you're not an early riser, and I did promise to give you a reading. Bless your heart. So I'm going to pull two cards for you, Kathy. And you said kind of a general reading. So I'm first going to pull a card from my Andinkara deck, which is about qualities. All right, they're kind of about maybe what you might call personality traits, qualities. And I'm asking the cards, what quality does Kathy most need right now? And that is, I know that you have a lot of things going on. I know that you had at one point been considering even a move, different things like that. So let's see what the cards have to say. What quality would be most helpful? So I've shuffled them a little. I'm spreading them out. And let's see what we got here. Boom. Ha! And the card that comes is intelligence. Okay? Intelligence. And I think that for you, obviously, since we both went to the same college, I know that you're intelligent, but I think that the kind of intelligence that they're referring to now is a little bit more toward what I'm being guided to say is mother wit. That kind of intelligence that comes from having your feet on the ground and staying connected to just basics. Sometimes I think that you have a tendency to build what I almost want to call castles in the air. You're so imaginative, you're so creative, your mind gets carried away with you and you begin sort of thinking, well, maybe we could do that, and then again, maybe we could do that, and it spins off here and spins off there. And then sometimes at the end of the day, after all that kind of visioning, some of the more practical aspects get neglected. And the intelligence that I'm being guided to speak about with you is the intelligence of having your feet on the ground, the intelligence of practicality, the intelligence of actually listing things and moving forward in a very methodical, step-by-step way. And I know that you sometimes do that. You do that when you're helping your students and teaching. You're capable of it, but it's not necessarily always your favorite way to look at the world, because being creative, sometimes it's easier to just, in your mind, you imagine that things are already done and you've jumped to the next step, if you will. And so what I'm guided to tell you is focus on the details. Focus on the nitty-gritty. I know that you've been thinking about making some changes in your home and in your environment. And obviously with the whole virus and the pandemic and all that whole drama, there are changes that need to be made. I'm being encouraged to tell you to move step by step through them and not skip steps, not jump ahead, or be too sort of in your creative mind about them. Let it be I'm being guided to say workman-like kind of approach. One nail at a time, hammer, 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 rather than just whoosh and it's done, because it's not going to be like that. I do feel this has to do with your house. So you can tell me if you've been thinking about making some changes to your house or something like that. Okay, let me now, I'm also going to pull for you a card from my Akashic Records deck. As you know, this deck, I use this deck a lot because I like its open-ended messages, and I also like that the pictures are so beautiful. So here's the card that comes, the scribe. The scribe. So, my dear Kathy, have you been thinking about writing something? Are you thinking about, I know that you've been talking about your documentary. I know that you've been talking about that for a long time, but have you been thinking about writing, either changing the script, adding to it, adding some new sections? This feels like it's kind of memoir-ish in nature, but there's some writing I'm seeing for you in the future. I know that you're a musician, so you will always obviously keep doing that. That's in the blood. But there's something to do with writing. And once again, I'm being encouraged to tell you that it is a step by step by step by step situation. It's not, I have a beautiful vision, I vision it, and it's done. This is more like step by step. First, I make the outline, and then I gather the facts. And that back in the day, we would have the index cards that we would fill in with our little quotes and things like that. It's a very much workman-like step-by-step approach, but I do feel that there's writing involved. And so that is what is coming up for you right now, Kathy, in your general reading. So I hope that this is helpful. As always, please shoot me an email and let me know how this lands for you. I can't wait to find out. Hi everyone, I hope you enjoyed that reading, and Kathy, please let me know if it was helpful. I hope you found it helpful. So we have come once again to the end of another episode of Carolyn's Psychic Playroom, and I'm so honored to spend this time with you. And if you have thoughts, questions, feedback, please write me, the Psychic Playroom at gmail.com. And meanwhile, I will see you in the new year.
Thoughts are things with the energy to make life better for you and for me. Touch the light.